The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon pan man, I'm the Teflon pan man, ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Hello everyone and welcome to All You Can Eat. It's the podcast about deliciousness, and I am your host, Rob Rosenthal, delighted to be with you here live on, what day is it, like the 18th of December 18th, 2019. We are literally 2 weeks from a brand new decade, 2020. It's unbelievable. Coming to you live from New York City. It's currently 31 degrees here, which is a little bit chilly. And I would say that we're getting these like notifications. You know how you get those things on the phone? And they go, hey, there's something crazy going on? I had to look it up. We have squalls here. What is a squall? A sudden violent gust of wind or a localized storm, especially one bringing rain or snow. So that's what we have. We got squalls here in New York City. But I tonight want to share with you my experience from last week, where I was far away in a place that was definitely not New York City. I was in the south of France, and from there a little bit of London. And I am here as I am on the All You Can Eat podcast episode, by the way, number 70. I mean, this is the 70th episode of All You Can Eat. And I like to, use it to provide people with, recommendations from my experience, insights, tips, tools, things you may want to know, because I got to be honest with you. I have a long experience with getting around and seeing things, but particularly, this year has been extraordinary. I thus far have been to 11 foreign countries, a couple of them actually more than one time, France and Spain, and it allows me to be able to report to you those things that you might find interesting, helpful, inspirational, and of course delicious. And when I say delicious, I don't mean just what you eat or what you drink. I mean experiences are delicious, aren't they? When you show up at a place and you look around and you go, oh man, this is lovely. You can call it whatever you want, but it is delicious. But so many things can be delicious, can't they? The sound of a child's laughter, the hug that you get from someone that you feel strongly about. These are all delicious things. And yes, I happen to have a particular admiration, taste for, things that you can actually eat and drink. In fact, right now, as I like to do when I go live, I am sipping on some Basil Hayden Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. And I'm, that's my bourbon whiskey. And I'm noshing on a little bit of the beehive cheese, which is infused with Basil Hayden bourbon. I believe the cheese is called Pour Me a Slice, brought to you by the nice folks who sent it to me from Basil Hayden. And I was thinking, if you're eating cheese and sipping on Basil Hayden bourbon, I'm thinking to myself, these are two of like the top 10, of the top 100 tastes, for me in the world. Now, I'm sure there are people for whom bourbon and cheese may show up on their top 10, but I'm allowing for a much broader kind of palate experience here. So thank you, Basil Hayden, for the bourbon. Lovely. Enjoying the cheese as well that is touched up with some of the bourbon. Check it out, folks. Basil Hayden, one of the great Kentucky bourbons. Man, That's the thing, by the way. It's one of those places where it's like if you're drinking bourbon, it had better be from Kentucky. Isn't that funny? It's like, you can drink vodka from 18 countries. When it comes to bourbon, you're getting it out of Kentucky. And I've been down there, boy. I've been on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Nothing wrong with that. That's when I really started to appreciate bourbon. And so here you go, Basil, Hayden, bourbon, and that cheese. I mentioned that I am working live tonight, and you don't have to. I don't have to. Nobody has to when they do a podcast. I don't know the exact numbers, but I would guess that a lot of people produce their podcast in a studio and then put it on when the time comes. And there's nothing wrong with that, because it allows you essentially to, produce it, edit it, and perfect it. And therein lies the joy for me in going live. It's not perfect. I am going to every time that I go live, and I go live most of the time. I'm telling you, 90% of the time, I am doing the podcast live. And whereas, in pre-recording it and editing it, I can kind of minimize any kind of damages or mistakes to ensure that whatever I'm putting out there, I have complete control over. On the other hand, you go live, you're a little bit more tightrope. There are going to be screw-ups, I can tell you, because every time I go live, something will go wrong. And I would expect that as well tonight. But I like the energy of that. I like the feeling of the high wire, not knowing exactly what's going to happen. Other than here, we're going to spend a little bit of time together. And I will also say, by the way, that if you happen not to be listening live, it's because you have found All You Can Eat, the podcast, on either iHeartRadio, where all 70 episodes reside. All you have to do is look up All You Can Eat or Rob Rosenthal on iHeart to find any of the past episodes. And furthermore, Spotify will do that for you as well. All You Can Eat is a podcast on Spotify. Happy to report that, and you can find them all here. And of the 70 that I've done so far, the last bunch have actually been about places that I had recently traveled to. So, I had a recent experience in Spain that was phenomenal, over at the, not only in Madrid, but in the wine country over there that I reported on. That's a couple of episodes ago. But the year, in fact, 2019, is going to go down for me. I'm not sure that I will ever have another year where I have spent more time in more countries. I will end up this year eating in, I don't know, at least a dozen countries. Maybe 13 if you include my own. Maybe it's 14, I don't know. But tonight, I want to report to you on last week's trip that took me to France. Not Paris this time. This trip was to the south of France in the region of Provence. And I want to share some of the experience from Provence with you because it was extraordinary in so many ways. What we saw, what we ate, where we stayed, that whole thing was really fantastic. So I want to give that to you, and there may be some things in there that are interesting to you, whether or not you apply them to the south of France or whether or not you apply the same concepts in terms of how to find excitement and deliciousness wherever you go, to any place that you may be traveling. And then from there, and actually, by the way, along the way, I'm going to say that I not only stayed in an extraordinary place, but had a conversation with the general manager of the hotel that we discovered on the fly, called Lily of the Valley. So I'm going to be playing that conversation for you later, because that place was unbelievable. And then after some time in Provence, floating around Provence for 3 or 4 days, ended up over in London, England. Which, again, whether you know it, whether you haven't, what you can say about London is it is always one of the world's great cities. Just fantastic. So many things to do, see, experience, fabulous. But we start off with the trip to Provence, and I remember mentioning in the recent podcast on Spain and that trip over there a couple of months ago, how Spain is the second most visited country in the world in terms of total number of visitors coming into Spain second. But you know what the number one is? It's France. Let me see if I have the number in front of me because it's going to be kind of extraordinary. World's most visited places. Yeah, France is doing around, let's call it 89, 90 million visitors a year. It is literally the number one in the field of tourism. And why? Because you have a variety of places that people can go for, tourists can go for cultural interest, whether it's Paris or Lyon, places like that. You have alpine mountains, so people can go skiing. You have beautiful villages. You have country. You have UNESCO sites. It's just extraordinary. And, earlier in the year, we were in Paris. Again, no matter how many times I've been, and it has been many times, it's always a treat to be there. But this trip was different. This was a flight into Nice, because now I'm going to be floating around, and I'll tell you about floating around Provence. And when I say floating, there's a reason I say that. I say that because one of the choices that we made, and here the we, I'm referring to my wife and I, was why don't we go down there and maybe turn it into a little bit of an adventure. And by adventure, I mean, the way that I define adventure is that it has an uncertain ending. In other words, we figured we were going to go down there without a series of reservations, float around the area of Provence and see where we end up and see what we can discover. That is inherently exciting. And I'm not saying it's for everybody, but it's exhilarating to end up in a place, to discover a place, to explore a part of the world and not know precisely where you're going to be sleeping at night. I don't know. That may be anathema to people. That may be frightening, and yet that is exactly the thing that was the turn on for us, having done it before. And I'm not saying that I would do it in a country, I don't know that I'd be so bold if I were floating around China, because I'm not sure that I could read the street maps, But I'll tell you, it's the kind of thing that you can do in England. It's the kind of thing that you can do in Italy. It's the kind of thing that we've done in Portugal, and certainly in France. So Provence is geographically in the southeastern part of France, and the area extends all the way from kind of the Rhone River to the Italian border to the Mediterranean Sea. I would say the largest city in that part of the world is Marseille, which would be the place you would want to go for bouillabaisse, the famous kind of French soup, fish soup. It's a beautiful part of the world. The Romans have been there. The Greeks have been there. The climate is what you would call Mediterranean. So you're in the south of France. You have like hot, dry summers. The winters are mild, and that's important. So there's very little snow. There's a lot of sunshine. And that matters, right? Because I'm telling you that I'm there the first week in December, and basically the temperature is 60 degrees. And the beauty of 60 degrees is that especially when you get the sun, the winter sun, is that you can spend time outside. Whether you're walking, taking a run, or, in my case, eating al fresco. That is delightful. When it's 31 degrees and there are snowy squalls in New York City, I can be in the south of France with a sweatshirt on or a sweater, sipping on some Sancerre and sucking down some oysters, sitting outside in the sun in the middle of the day. That's a beautiful thing. The cuisine of Provence, this is what you get when you have this Mediterranean climate and you have this kind of landscape. You have sheep grazing, and you have goats, and then you have seafood coming in from the coast, and you have olives being grown everywhere, and garlic, and then there's sardines and sea urchin and octopus and lamb and goat, chickpeas, grapes, peaches, apricots, strawberries, cherries. Let me tell you, the French got it going on when it comes from food, and nobody is going to argue with Provence. In fact, I give a class on the 10 herbs and spices that will change your life, and I do make a point of discussing the herbs de Provence, which are all the kind of typical herbs that come out of that part of the world. And they're fabulous, right? The rosemary and the thyme and all those delicious tarragon and fennel and marjoram and parsley. And anyway, that's what you're getting down there in Provence. And you also have wine growing down there, and delicious wines. Not just the rosés, but of course those are pretty common in that part of the world. But just the wines in general. And the French, God bless them, the French drink wine. Like each culture, I mean, I'm going to generalize here, but I think it's a fair generalization. Cultures are known for certain things that they drink, right? Because like if I say, what are they drinking in Germany? Most people would go, it's a beer drinking culture. I would say the same with Australia, right? That they drink a ton of beer down there. If we talk about France, they're drinking wine. These are wine drinking people, and I think that's probably true of Italy to a large extent. I don't know. What do you think about England? Certainly, there's a lot of beer going down there. But I'll tell you what. When we get to London, I can talk to you also about martinis. Goes to the gin, man. London gin, baby. Nothing wrong with that. America, I don't know what we're drinking here. I mean, right. Mexico. If I go, what are you drinking in Mexico? The answer is I'm drinking tequila. France. And Russia, what are you drinking in Russia? Well, they're drinking vodka. That's right. I mean, so it's a generalization, but it's a truism. And the point of the story here is that you're down in Provence and you're having beautiful food in a beautiful scenic environment, and you're drinking wine. That's why the place was, first kind of, settled in by the Greeks, the Romans. And when I talk about Provence, part of Provence is the French Riviera, the Côte d'Azur, right? It's the coastline along that southeast part of France. So you've heard of, all the seaside resorts, right? Like, Nice, which is where you fly into, which is where we flew into, Cannes. Don't pronounce it Cannes. It's not. It's Cannes. Then you have Saint-Tropez, which is famous, as a beach resort down there. Monte Carlo, that's part of the whole French Riviera thing. And again, climate fabulous. The tourism is interesting, right? Because it's easily their number one kind of revenue maker. But here I am in December now, and that's the thing. I'm going. I like to go against the flow. To kind of, you're coming in and I'm going out, or you're coming out and I'm going in. I'm okay with that. And so you fly into Nice, which we did. We spent a couple of days over in Cannes, and my wife was very savvy. Now, what Cannes, by the way, as you know, is famous, particularly in high season, in the middle of the summer, for major festivals, right? I mean, you're talking about the film festival, and advertising has its giant festival there. But even in this time of year, even in the beginning of December, they have like huge, it's a huge place for the convention. And while it would be easy in the sense that, you could book a hotel room, we went for something different. We picked up one of those VRBO, I suppose you could do it through Airbnb. We found an apartment, beautifully located, like right there, like right in the, in the middle of it all. And it was really fantastic. And I'll tell you, there's, I got no problem with a nice hotel, right? There's nothing wrong with not having to make your bed, and they bring us some fresh, towels and shampoo every day. And there's something super easy, convenient about the hotel thing. But here's the thing, and here's suggestion number one. Contemplate on a trip to a foreign place, the prospect made so much easier these days by technology, by your Airbnb and by 1,000 other places, including VRBO and HomeAway. The idea of actually having your own apartment for 3 or 4 or 5 days or a week or whatever, or 2 weeks or whatever it may be. And the reason why essentially comes down to this. There's something about living there like a local. No, I'm not saying that you're a local. You're not. I'm saying that when you have your own place, you look at things differently rather than going back to the hotel, which is fine. There's something about having your own place, your own little pad, your own apartment. And you bring up some water and some wine and some cheese, and you turn on the local television in the local language. there's something kind of fun about that, going back to your own place. So we got lucky with that. And that was a lovely place. And used that as the base for a couple of days. And as I said, the deal here was about now we're going to go float around the Riviera a little bit, and then maybe the rest of Provence a little bit for the next 3 or 4 days. And by floating around, I mean, as I said, that the idea for us is the uncertain outcome. So all we know is that we're going to rent a car. And I did that actually before we left the United States of America. I called up. I have a car waiting for us right in Cannes. And we got a little bit lucky. And sometimes you have to get lucky. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I actually had ordered a manual because I can drive a stick. And, you save like $40 a day. I mean, it's a lot less if you drive historically the manual car. But when I walked into the Avis counter there in Cannes, they said, "Oh, hi, we've upgraded the car. It's going to be a Mercedes and a convertible. How much luggage do you have?" And I go, "Who cares how much luggage I have? You got a Mercedes convertible. I'm in." "Well, you want to take a look at the car?" "Yeah, by all means." So you take a look at the car. And the reason they're asking is because you can't actually keep your luggage in the trunk if you're going to put the top down. So I could see there's plenty of room in the back seat if the top is going down. And at 60 degrees, the top is going down. So we got a little bit lucky on the car. And someone from that experience that I had some months ago in Spain said, "Oh, by the way, where are you going next?" I said, "Oh, south of France." "Oh, you may want to meet my friend Stephane. He runs a lovely hotel there in that part of the world. And, you would like it because it's super great, elegant, fabulous place." Well, literally on the morning that we're getting out of town, maybe it was the night before, I sent an email to Stephane and I said, "Hey, we're in the area. We're thinking about stopping by." "Well, by all means, and let me know if you need a room," said he. Well, let me just say, I took a quick peek at that website. It's quite a sensational looking place. So we hop in the car and put the top down because it's now 60 degrees and the sun is shining in the south of France, and we're on the Mediterranean. This is all good. One of the other advantages you have if you should decide to take a trip that entails driving in a foreign country. One of the other advantages that you have these days is a thing called, Google Maps. I mean, talk about making it easy. We used to have to use actual real maps. Here's the thing. There are certain countries that make driving in them pleasurable. Not just because you're driving along the Mediterranean, but because the whole driving system, the whole network of roads, the whole driving protocol is clean, it's pure, it's disciplined, and it's logical. By which I mean that, you're driving around France, and every short distance you come to a traffic circle, and it's very clear where you need to go because the signs go, if you're going to Nice, go that way. If you're going to Cannes, go that way. If you're going to Marseille, you go that way. I mean, driving down there is a pleasure because the roads are so nicely organized. That's part one. Part two, the driving etiquette is so right. It's so much better than here. I can't begin to tell you how disgusted I am every time I'm in the left lane in America and I go, did these people not go to the same driving classes that I did? Don't people understand that the left lane is for passing? You got to get out of the way. I don't want to spend too long venting about that, but trust me, it's not what you get when you get to France. That left lane moves, man. The right lane people going slow. The middle lane people are just kind of cruising. And if you want to move, you get into the left lane and you go, right? That's just the way it is. It's pure driving. It's beautiful driving. And I should also point out, by the way, that if you happen to get onto the highway down there, it's driving at a damn decent speed. right? I mean, you're cruising at 140 kilometers an hour. What are we looking at? I don't know, 85 miles an hour, but it was, it's easy you're doing 95, 100 when you're on the highway. And you could tell them coming to you from New York City, because those are sirens, police sirens in the background. Which reminds me, I really did not see much of a police presence in any of the time I was doing 100 on the highway in France. With the convertible down, oh my God, what a treat that is. So you have a choice when you leave Cannes. You can take like the highway over to where we're going to go find Lily of the Valley Hotel, and the highway will take you like, I don't know, let's say it take you an hour. Or you can take the coastal route, and that'll take you twice as long. And so what do? You take the coastal route, because now you're driving on kind of semi-windy, mountainous roads, a couple of, 200-300 feet above the Mediterranean. That's glorious, man. That is just beautiful. Just lovely. Made easy, by the way, not only because the conditions are good and the driving is good, but because there you got your Google Maps, man. I mean, it's telling you where to go. How easy is that? What a treat that is. So we check out of our VRBO, temporary residence in Cannes. We're on the road. The weather is fantastic. And again, just going back to Cannes, before we move into Lily of the Valley, I mean, the beauty of being there this time of year is that it's not quite as intensely, traffic and touristed up. And like I said, you can eat outside, which I did. And I mean, they got some oysters, man. They got some oysters down there. The French are famous for their Bourbon. Beautiful, big, fat, minerally, sweet, oceanic, briny, fabulous oysters. I eat also something called Boulots, Bulots. These are the coniferous. I mean, those kind of, they look kind of like, they're like, if you imagine what a snail shell looks like, these would be that kind of elongated, kind of a cornucopia. And they hand you a fork that must be 12 inches long, thin, because you're going to pull out the meat from inside this shell of the Boulots. And it's slimy. Like when you pull it out, it's not just the meat that's coming out, it's slimy coming out. And it's chewy. It's literally like chewy like a piece of gum. And it's cold. And you dip it into some mayonnaise. And it's amazing. I think I would give up. Oh, this is a big one. I don't know if this is true, but I feel it. I feel like I would give up. Like if I had to choose between Boulots, oyster, and clams. And these are all, amazing. You want to talk about single ingredient meals. I might be inclined to go with the Boulots. What are they in English? I would say whelks. My chef friends out in Oregon told me they call them out there periwinkles. God, I'm in love with those things. And you're sitting outside, right? And there's a platter in front of you of Boulots oysters and maybe a bunch of these kind of Boulots, beautiful French bread, God bless them, the French man, the bread and the butter over there, and the wine. I don't need more than that. I'm happy with that. Popped into one night, and I'm still in Cannes. Wow, time is so... I didn't realize. I'm not going to get to really so much of this. Popped into a bistro in Cannes also, and here's what I want to talk about with that. What's the difference between a bistro and a brasserie? A bistro is way more kind of small, charming, cozy. The brasserie is bigger and louder and kind of like, maybe they're serving, it was based on kind of like a brewery. Like there was, there was beer and it was bigger. And whereas the bistro is a little bit more intimate, if you will. Anyway, we passed by this place over in Cannes, Le Cave. And, it's funny, we didn't have a reservation, which is always a risk, I suppose, on like whatever night it was at prime time. And you look into a restaurant and you go, oh yeah, that's where I want to go. Like you don't even necessarily have to look at the menu, to know that you just look into a place and that it has a magnetism about it. It's all the seats are taken. There's a warmth in there. There's a certain glow of the light. You can kind of see the kitchen off to the background. You can see the specials maybe written on a blackboard on the wall. And you go, oh, I want to go there. So you go in and you go, yeah, no, we don't have a reservation. What's the deal? Well, you want to sit outside and have a little, have a little Kia Royale for a couple of minutes under the heat lamps. Yeah, sure. Why not? I'll wait. Fantastic. Just, glorious. And I will say this, and it's just a concept that I want to share with you, which is that at a moment in time inside the restaurant, through the meal, through a bottle of wine, every seat taken, people from different cultures, eating homey, French food. Like one of the dishes was choux farci, like like literally stuffed cabbage grandma style, right? And I'm having a veal chop with a morel mushroom sauce. And I'm mentioning all this because, again, this is what travel is. It's being able essentially to explore, to not know where you're going to end up, but to be in it and to experience it and to live it, kind of like to discover things that you hadn't known before. This is the beauty of moving around the world and seeing different things and exploring different places and seeing different cultures and how they operate and how they share and how they cook and how they serve. You know what I mean? Just glorious. But here's the point I want to make before we move on. I didn't realize how much time I was elapsing with my excitement here. I'm not even going to get to London on this. It's unbelievable. But the point I wanted to make was that right around 10 o'clock or so, there was a particular buzz in the restaurant. There was a particular sound that was the foundation of which was laughter, like a light, kind of charming laughter, right around the 10 o'clock hour. And it occurred to me that I've heard that sound before. It's the sound it's the sound coming from people who were in a relatively tightly confined space, in a moment of happiness, post 2 hours of drinking wine, where all of a sudden there's this kind of collective joy that collects in the room. It's there's not a name for it, and there should be. Anyway, that was the point I wanted to make about that. So we get in the car and we drive to Lily of the Valley. Now I've been, like I said, I don't know, this is like 11 countries for me so far this year, and I got lucky because I ended up in some extraordinary resorts along the way that that I was invited to report about. And so driving the coast a couple of hours, just fantastic, overlooking the Mediterranean, and finally arrive at this Lily of the Valley, and it's one of those things where the second that you pull up, you go, oh, this is good. This is special. This is special. Like you just know it pulling up that you're in something that's extraordinary. And I say it because as you drop the car and enter the lobby, you're looking out on the Mediterranean Ocean. And the place, what's interesting about it is that even though it had been there for a while, at this point it's brand new. It was taken over by a new owner some years ago, with the resources to hand over essentially what seems to me to be an unlimited budget to the amazing, brilliant French designer Philippe Starck, and basically said to Starck, go ahead and design this place. And it's not a huge place. It's 44 rooms, right? And you're overlooking the Mediterranean, and you're surrounded by nature, trees, slightly mountainous valley. I mean, it's just, and then you walk into kind of a main room, which you could call a loft, and there's one pool out in front of you, and there's the ocean, and the sun is setting, and you go, oh, I don't want to have to leave. So, given the time that we have, because I can't even believe how much time I killed to get here, and I apologize about that, but you know what? I ended up having a conversation with Stephane Personeni. Now, Stephane is the general manager of this place, which I'm telling you opened, literally, even though the hotel's been there for a long time, the redesign under the new management opened literally last summer. And by this summer, you're not going to be able to get a room. And if you could, you should know that it'll probably be super expensive because this is some 5-star luxury stuff, man. This is aesthetically perfection. The service, a couple of heated pools, the food, the drink, everything about it feels like, it's glorious. About 10 or 15 minutes, let's call it, away from Saint-Tropez, where in the summer the buzz is going to be so intense you can't even walk down the street. And here is this oasis of privacy and elegance 10 or 15 minutes away. So, hey, Jimmy, are you there in the studio? Well, because I'm going to need you to run our interview. Yo, Jimmy, you there? Let me see if I can find my producer. How do I do that? Here's your producer. Let me see if I can. How do I do this now, Jimmy? I can't. Okay. Help, man. Help. Boom. Okay, I'm not getting Jimmy. All right, so let me go back to where I was. Where was I? Yeah, all you can eat. Okay. Jimmy, you there? Well, anyway, I'll tell you what.
Yes,
Jimmy,
I am.
Okay, thank you, sir. I was saying to everybody, now that you're there, I think it's time to run my conversation with Stephane, the general manager here of Lily of the Valley. Can you do that now?
Yeah, I do. It's all set up.
Oh, go ahead. Run it, and I'll come back when it's over.
All right.
Thank you. All right,
Okay,
folks, here we go.
This is very exciting because I am here in France, in the south of France. I am in Provence, in fact, and I am with Stephane Personeni, who is the general manager here at this rather incredible hotel that I find myself at, called Lily of the Valley. Stephane, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Tell me something. I always like to start with, where in the world are we? Let's help explain to people where exactly we are.
So, in fact, we are something very important. We are facing the sea in Plage de Giguero. Very, very private place, close to the nature, close to the sea, close to the island. We are just on the top of a small hill. We could enjoy the sea and nature. It's so close, and we are in south of France.
Yes.
On the peninsula of Saint-Tropez.
Okay, so in fact, we are just a few minutes from, we could probably be in Saint-Tropez in, 5-10 minutes if we wanted, right?
Exactly. In fact, you are on a very quiet place, but
Right.
in less than 15 minutes, you are in Pamplonne, and you could get your lunch at Club 55 or Niki Beach, or you could be to Les Caves du Roi or Place des Lys,
Right.
or to Sénéquier in 20 minutes.
And when we, just because people are not always so kind of savvy about geography, when we talk about the sea, we are here on the Mediterranean.
Exactement.
And more importantly, in where we're situated here at Lily of the Valley, we literally could walk right down to the beach. We are that close, am I right?
Exactly. In fact, we are on the walking distance, and you could walk to the natural beach, or you could walk to the private beach of Lily. It's maximum. If you stop for a lovely selfie, it will take 10 minutes, and less if you don't stop.
Right, okay. Now, and the other thing I think that you mentioned, which I find interesting, is the area that we're in here, this portion of the sea here, I feel that it is protected, is it not?
Exactly. It's very, very protected since a very long time. In fact, when you look at the sea, you could see the island, les Îles d'Or. It's Porquerolles. It's a natural park since more than 15 years. So the sea and the area and the beach are really protected since a long time. And on the left side, you've got le Cap Lardier, Cap Camara, and Cap Taillat. It's a place called Natura 2000. It means it's protected by the French government. It's impossible to build it.
Right.
No road, no cars. So to walk, to hiking, to bicycle, even to enjoy the beach, it's so beautiful and it's really close to the nature. Very important.
Very important and very striking. I mean, it's always the most challenging to try to give people a sense of perspective when it comes to kind of the vista here. But we're in a place overlooking the Mediterraneans with low-lying mountains in the background. It's gorgeous and it's stunning. The other thing I think that's interesting to me too is the fact that we're here in early December. And yet, you have two enormous pools here on the ground that are heated. We've been eating meals outside. So this is interesting because December, especially if you come from, for example, the United States, you're not, at least the East Coast, right? You're not thinking about eating outside. But the weather this time of year feels very comfortable. I mean, it's great to be outside.
Exactly, and in fact, here, even during the winter, we're still serving outside. The beach still open all year. It's true that for many people, when you think south of France, if you think Cannes, Marseille, or Monaco, everything is open all year.
Yeah.
Many people think Saint-Tropez and say just July and August. We live here, many things still open here, and few beaches are open every day, every single day. It's why Lily of the Valley will be open all year round, and you could enjoy the place. It means if it's sunny, you could be outside, walking on the beach all year round.
Well, I did see people surfing on the way here. I mean, there are, I mean, sure, they're in the wetsuit, but so the other thing here that is super kind of instantly recognizable is aesthetically the place is stunning, and there's a reason for that. Explain to people that the hotel itself is really only opened for the 6-7 months ago. We could start with that, and then tell people for people who don't know. Who is Philippe Starck? Because it's a fantasy to be able to say, I want to, build a place with that man designing it.
In fact, the owner buy the place, and 3 years ago, this hotel exists since 1957. And when he buy it 3 years ago, he asked to Philippe Starck to build something incredible, close to the nature. And Philippe Starck said, no, I don't want to build any hotel in south of France. He said, please come to see the area and you will decide after. They was together in New York. They come back 2 weeks after in Monaco, and they just come to visit. And when Philippe Starck arrived, he said, no, it's impossible. I need, and nobody else could build something here. I will do it. And the owner said, I just want one thing. I want the nature, keep the nature like this, and build something for the nature and with the nature. And it's very, very important. And doing something with Philippe Starck is so incredible. And he do really a great job. And everything is so mixed with the nature of the sea. The view, we really want to bring something different and something else in Saint-Tropez. And I think with Philippe Starck, he's really an artist.
Yes.
And he's playing with everything. He's playing with the view, he's playing with the material, he's playing with the nature. And for us, he really do a great job with Lily of the Valley.
Yeah, I have to say that for people who don't know, I mean, he is, like we like to call him like the Babe Ruth or the LeBron James of kind of design architects. Just a brilliant man. And the thing about it that is so impressive, Stephane, everywhere I look, the attention to detail on the design aesthetic. I mean, I was in the gym this morning. It doesn't look, I mean, even though the equipment is high tech and fantastic, there are coverings on the light fixtures. There are books. There are photos. I mean, it feels fantastic. Everything is really just stunningly beautiful, and all the accoutrements like in the room.
Something important for Philippe, it's the details.
Right.
The detail for any product.
Yeah.
It means if your eyes go somewhere, you will find something specific.
Yeah.
And it could be for the setup on the table, the furniture, the way of moving in the restaurant, the way of moving in the area, which kind of product, how we mix it, the leather, the wood, the stone, even the light on the evening. He wants to work on any details, and it's why the product is so different.
Yeah.
He don't bring something, a design, and he say go. No, he leave the place. When we open the place during 1 week, he stay with us before that the guest arrive, and he move around to check if everything was right. He check the food. We could speak with him about the menu. We move in the area. We go to the spot. He try to use the swimming pool. He really want to leave the place. I think this guy, Philippe, he design something, but he really create an ambiance and a place. It's something different.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. And look, I've been traveling for a very long time, and I've been in a lot of great places around the world. So you know instantly when you walk into a place that you have something special. And that's this. The feel, the design, the aesthetic is sensational. And I see the details everywhere I go. I see it in the telephone in the room. I see it in the design of the bathroom. I see it in as I mentioned, in the gym. It's just extraordinary. But in addition to that makes the place special, you are very big on wellness, right? This is a very important component of the offering here is the wellness program. Talk a little bit about what people can expect from that.
In fact, we decide to create a new place and to open all year round. Nobody do it in Saint-Tropez. So we need to bring something different. And we decide to bring wellness. Something very important. Retreat all year round. It means you could come for detox, ultra weight loss, better aging, sport. So people are waiting for you. We take care of yourself. It's really a bespoke wellness. It means it's for you.
Yep.
Some people need sport because they are tired. Some people need weight loss because they enjoy too much their life, maybe for a few months.
That'll be me.
Some need detox because they are tired. So we really do a bespoke retreat, and we welcome you all year round when you like, and we take care of you in a very specific place, Lily. And the wellness is something very important all year round. 44 rooms only.
Yep.
So it's like a big home and not a huge complex.
Right.
You will find everything, but for you, and it's really something particular for the people who need something quiet.
Yes.
And it's why we would like to run it like this all year round.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's intimate, and everything that you need you can find here. On the wellness note, that's also reflected, I would say, in the culinary program as well, right? I mean, you have two restaurants, and one of them is actually devoted to kind of more of what I would call your clean eating. Can you explain a little bit about how you handle the food and beverage here?
So, in fact, we decide to do something healthy and art de vivre. It's mean our baseline, it's wellness and art de vivre.
Right.
We would like that the people enjoy their life, but if they are enough strong to come to the restaurant and enjoy, we could say, typical food from south of France, that means it's healthy one. They could be at the Vista, facing the sea. If they want something more strict and hard, we could propose the healthy restaurant by the wellness. You stay at the wellness, you don't move from the wellness, you do your sport, your retreat, and we offer a very specific restaurant with healthy food, super food, vegan. We propose vegan and without any sugar or many. If you get some restrictive product, we could find it, and it's why we would like to offer two different restaurants. And next year we will offer two new one by the beach, big place on the sea with two different restaurants, one bistro and one brasserie.
Oh wow!
The thing that I wanted to say is I kind of have experienced both ends of the spectrum that you describe. In that, last night we had dinner here, and I had an unbelievably. I like gin, but your man made a cocktail that was extraordinary with gin. I just was shocked by how good it was. Really, and I have to tell you that just there was an appetizer of mussels gratinées, and I could have easily made a meal out of that gin and tonic drink that he made me and those mussels. Then to compensate for that, this morning I did spend some time, quality time in the gym, and I noticed that the pools are heated, and you have a beautiful lap pool. So. It's as you described, a way that you can have both, I suspect, the joie de vivre, and at the same time wellness to whatever extent that you like. Finally, you did mention that there's 44 rooms here, but I know that you're also in the process of building a little bit more down by the beach. What's going on down there?
In fact, 2 weeks ago we buy a beach and two lovely places close to the beach, so it's 2 minutes from the hotel.
Right.
And with Philippe Starck, we are in a process to build a suite and a villa. It means each suite, each villa will get its own swimming pool,
Wow.
own garden. Like this, you could walk to the wellness, you could walk to the beach.
Right.
It will be more private, but with the service from the hotel,
Sure.
it will be a new product in 18 months, and it will be a lovely result.
Addition.
Small one, but
Right.
lovely addition.
Well, I have to say thank you, and I have to congratulate you because the place is really extraordinary in every way. And again, I thank you. Thank you for your time, and
Merci,
wish
monsieur.
you the very best. I mean, it's brand new, so right now there aren't a lot of people who know about it. I mean, this is not even it's like about 6 months old, but there's no question in my mind that once it gets discovered, there's going to be 100% occupancy for the foreseeable future.
We will try. Merci beaucoup à vous.
Okay, très bien.
À bientôt.
À bientôt.
Beautiful.
Well, that was the conversation I had with the great Stephane Personeni. He is the general manager over there at Lily of the Valley. And if you can't tell, I mean, it's I was thrilled to be able to experience it. I feel lucky about it because it's not very big and it's going to be very popular. And so there's one recommendation for you if you're fortunate enough to be in that part of the world. Now, we went from there. Hopped into the car and took a drive for another couple of hours, this time going kind of north and west into kind of more of inland in Provence to a city called Aix-en-Provence, A-I-X, en Provence, a little town, maybe like 140, 150,000 people. And it was because somewhere along the way we met people there at Lily of the Valley. This is what happens if you're going on the fly. You don't really know where you're going next. We did not have a room for that evening, right? We had one night over here in Lily, and then we're going, all right, let's hop in the car and go for the next place. And we met some people at Lily who said, oh, there's this place up in it. Where are you going? We said, well, I'd like to go to Aix-en-Provence because it's a charming fabulous city in the midst of Provence, and they said, oh, you may want to try this Chateau de la Gaude, Gaude, and we made contact with Chateau de la Gaude. We were able to reserve a room. We drove there, and we pulled up to an 18th century, chateau, this little kind of castle. And like Lily of the Valley, the place literally was renovated last June. So now you're at a place that is 18th century, but equipped and modernized with all the fabulousness and the convenience and the technology and the charm and the everything good of today. Lovely room overlooking Provence, fields, valleys, mountains, sun setting, overlooking a French garden on the ground. Also on the ground, a vineyard. Also a restaurant helmed by a Michelin star chef. So Chateau de la Gaude, G-A-U-D, again, it's going to be a fully booked as prime time rolls around next summer. I suspect it's going to be expensive because, again, you're talking about 5-star luxury type resort. It's in the kind of the how would you describe where it is? I mean, it's 10 minutes right outside of the little village, the town center of Aix-en-Provence, which is, just super charming, like one of those places you get into a foreign country and you just like to get lost in the streets because there's all these little fabulous stores and boutiques and places to eat and the market. I mean, the market there in Aix was unbelievable. I picked up, as I said, some herbs de Provence because those are fresh and local. There's a guy who is making madeleines. Do you know those little cookies? Those little cookies, the canoe-shaped cookies, they're like sponge cake, and they're coming out of the oven, like fresh, right out of the oven, and it's 60 degrees and sunny, and so you go, and you know what? This is fantastic. Sometimes you just get lucky. So yeah, does it pay to feel confident in driving in a foreign country? Are you going to need to have an international phone plan to make sure that you can get internet reception everywhere you go? Does it pay to chat with some people along the way and find out who they know and what they know and where might be interesting to stop next? Yes, this is my advertisement for taking a little adventure with uncertain outcome and getting yourself in a car in a foreign country, especially in a beautiful place. And again, I like Europe, having done this in a number of European countries, and I'll tell you, that's an experience that's unforgettable. That's just 3 or 4 days of real, combination of kind of exhilaration and relaxation and charm and deliciousness. That's what I propose for you, my friends. Get out, see the world. Get in touch with me if you should need any kind of direction, advice, insight, tips, or travel. I'm easy to find. If you go on to your Instagram, I'm Real Rob Rosenthal. If you happen to be in the Twitter world, I'm Short Order Dad. Or you can also find me, look up Short Order Dad. I'm easy to contact. I will tell you also, because it's Christmas season, you can pick up a copy of Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free all around the internet, including your Amazon, because it is a fantastic holiday gift for anybody that wants to kind of, that is showing some type of interest in the kitchen and cooking. I make it easy. I make it fun. Jimmy, is it my time, or should I just keep...
Yep, no, it's your turn.
Okay, then let me say goodnight to everybody, and I will thank you for spending time. Back with you next week here on All You Can Eat. Remember, life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on